Chapter 988. Huge strength. Since ancient times, as a small country, Silla has always been a vassal of other countries. Even in modern times, this situation has not changed. However, every person in the Republic of Silla has a dream of becoming a great country. This can be seen from their country name. The only country in the world that uses the word big in its name. As the strongest man in Silla, Kim Hee-chul has extreme national sentiment. Before this trip to Fog Valley, he had sworn to everyone. He must seize the source of God and become a strong man of the level of Epsilon. As long as I become Epsilon, no one will dare to ignore our existence. At that time, Silla will no longer be a vassal of Huashu or Columbia. The people of our country can also proudly hold their chests high. The fate of Silla is on my shoulders, Kim Hee-chul. He did not act blindly. His ability index is as high as 9,500 points. Even if placed in the lock of hell, he can barely rank at the bottom. Such strength made him think that he was qualified to covet the source of the gods in the Fog Valley. As long as he didn't meet the top masters from the two regions of Huashu country, he would definitely have the strength to fight. A roar broke out from Jin Shicha's mouth. Spirit of the Tiger God. White light began to cover his body. A huge white tiger phantom appeared behind him, and the tiger roar was deafening. Swish! Jin Shicha disappeared in front of Qinglong, and his speed was dazzling. Qinglong's eyes began to become serious. His left hand was suspended in front of him, and his right hand held the broadsword at his side. Tiger Kill Fist. A dazzling white light attacked from Qinglong's left. Qinglong felt that there was only dazzling white in the space on the left, and at the same time, a huge tiger stared at him, opening its ferocious mouth and rushing to kill. Qinglong felt a strong sense of killing, and he subconsciously swung his left fist to block it. A huge force hit his arm, making a dull sound like a bell and drum. Kim Hee-chul's pupils shrank slightly as he hid in the shadow of the white tiger. His full-strength attack was blocked so easily by the opponent. Qinglong didn't even move his feet. Descendant of the sun, white tiger killing. Kim Hee-chul's fists retreated slightly, and then a continuous attack that was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye attacked Qinglong. Qinglong still stood in the same place, facing Kim Hee-chul sideways. Facing Kim Hee-chul's surging attack, he only did one thing. His left hand blocked in front of him, and then swung like a breeze blowing a willow. Kim Hee-chul's speed was very fast, and Qinglong's speed seemed a little slow. But no matter how fast Kim Hee-chul was, his fists could not break through Qinglong's defense, and all were blocked by Qinglong with one hand. After Kim Hee-chul threw hundreds of punches in a row, cold sweat was about to flow down. The power of the bear god. He changed the way he fought. The shadow of the white tiger around his body slowly dissipated and turned into the shadow of a brown bear. When he attacked again, his arm collided with Qinglong's arm. Crack. The collision of the two people's bones was like a metal collision, with a crisp sound. Oh! Qinglong felt the change of Jin Shicha. His speed slowed down, but his strength became stronger. A reinforcement-type alien, but with two different powers, right? Quite strong. Qinglong made an evaluation of Jin Shicha in his heart. However, he did not rush to fight back, but held the knife in his right hand and defended with his left hand. But the knife in his right hand brought great pressure to Jin Shicha. Jin Shicha's throat began to become a little dry. Because from beginning to end, Qinglong did not show any alien ability. It was like an old farmer who was just repeating simple farming movements. Back to basics. Only these 4 words can describe Qinglong at this time. Who are you? After throwing hundreds of punches, Jin Shicha finally ran out of strength and retreated dozens of steps. He stared at Qinglong with his eyes and asked in a deep voice the suspicion in his heart. Chaos in Jiangnan District, or 4 spirits in Donghai District. Qinglong looked at him silently. Why are your hands shaking? He looked at Kim Hee-chul's right hand hidden behind his back and asked calmly. Kim Hee-chul's face looked a little ugly. He was the one who took the initiative to attack, but every punch he made seemed to hit a heavy metal plate. Seeing that Qinglong was safe and sound, his hand was probably turning blue and purple. I don't want to make too much noise. Qinglong's tone was calm, as if he was chatting with the air. If you leave here now, I can pretend that this incident never happened. You should understand. He glanced at Kim Hee-chul. You're not my opponent. This sentence made Kim Hee-chul's back cold. From the beginning to the end, Qinglong showed a kind of contempt for him. No, that can't even be regarded as contempt, because contempt requires care first. But Qinglong treated him like air. This greatly humiliated Kim Hee-chul's fragile self-esteem. Moreover, he didn't believe Qinglong's words at all, because if he ran away at this time, Qinglong might attack him from behind. These days, few people have martial ethics. Many people like to cheat and attack. Don't be too arrogant. Kim Hee-chul shouted in a low voice. I'm not the only one around here. As long as the movement here gets bigger, the aliens of our joint forces will soon come. No matter how powerful you are, if we rush over, you may not be able to kill us all. Qinglong sighed helplessly. So, what do you want? Jin Shicha glanced at the source spirit not far away. He swallowed his saliva with a gulp. Then he stretched out 2 fingers to Qinglong. 2. I only want 2. The rest are all yours. Qinglong sighed. That's nothing. He moved his arms and raised them up. Jin Shicha's supernatural powers were raised to the strongest state. Come on. It's your turn to attack now. The next moment, Qinglong's left arm suddenly swelled up. After a brief moment, his body turned into an extremely uncoordinated form. A human body, but with an arm like a pillar of heaven. That arm broke through the combat uniform and broke through the thick poisonous miasma, like Sun Wukong's Dinghai Shenzhen. At a glance, it was hundreds of meters long. Jin Shicha was stunned for a moment. How could he have seen such a terrifying giant? Boom! The huge arm fell like a pillar of heaven. A terrifying sound like an earthquake rang out at the edge of the entire fog valley, and the earth directly cracked into a huge and deep crack. Kim Hee-chul had no power to resist, and was smashed into a pool of flesh. Chapter 989. Fog Siqi. Qinglong put away his arms and sighed helplessly. Why are people in your country always so arrogant and like to die? Jin Shicha was not to blame for this. If he knew at the beginning that the person he was facing was Qinglong from the EC region, he would have run away long ago. But how could Qinglong tell his identity? On Qingdao, what kind of enemy you encounter often depends on luck. It must be said that Jin Shicha's luck is a little worse. Qinglong reported the battle situation here to the command center, and then chased after them and found the source elves who were frightened and hid in the ruins. But he didn't absorb them, because at his level, absorbing this pure energy is not a big improvement. It's better to leave it for others to use. He took out a blue transparent jar from his backpack and stuffed the source elves directly into it. The yellow source elves quickly dissipated, turned into the purest energy, and then were stored. In fact, as Zhang Yi said, these strange creatures are just companions of the source of God. This is not the first time that the East China Sea region has come to the Fog Valley. They have sent reconnaissance troops here before, so they have also studied the source spirit, although it is still unclear what it is. One thing can be confirmed: it contains extremely pure life energy. For aliens below the advanced delta, it has a very powerful effect of increasing strength. But for Qinglong, whose ability index is as high as 9,800 points and whose talent potential has almost reached the limit, no matter how much this thing is absorbed, it will not have much effect of increasing strength. At the command center, after receiving the information that Qinglong killed Kim Hee-chul, Li Tianyang finally showed a happy smile on his face. He nodded with satisfaction and said loudly, "Well, you are worthy of being Qinglong of the 4-spirit fleet of the East China Sea region." The officers of the East China Sea region smiled at each other and finally relieved some of the pressure from Zhang Yi. Only Situ Xian smiled and asked, "How many points does this Scylla alien Indra have an ability index?" The staff gave an answer. "According to our intelligence, his ability index is as high as 9,500 points." Situ Xian smiled even more after hearing this. He put his hands behind his back and nodded calmly. "Oh, that's not bad." "Not bad." The seemingly complementing words made Li Tianyang and other officers in the East China Sea region look uncertain. In fact, killing a captain or fleet commander-level alien is a great achievement in any battle. And the aliens with an ability index of more than 9,000 points, looking at the regional level forces, are at most only a dozen. Yes, as the old saying goes, there is no harm without comparison. Zhang Yi killed 3 captain-level aliens with an ability index of more than 9,000 points. Among them, there are 1 member of the Chains of Hell with 9,600 points and 1 with 9,800 points. Compared with Zhang Yi, Qinglong's record does not seem so impressive. Li Tianyang didn't look at Situ Xian's expression and said in a deep voice, "Inform the whole area of this battle record. Boost morale and let them learn from the excellent warrior Qinglong." The staff want to operate it by themselves, no problem. As the major organizations and alien groups gradually approached the core area of the Fog Valley, the collisions between them became more and more intense. Especially when approaching the Fog Valley, the magical creature source elves also gradually increased. This kind of creature with pure energy can quickly improve people's strength. Even if you don't need it, you can collect it and sell it to other forces at a high price, or use it to arm the alien team in your hands. There are not a few fights caused by this thing. In the southwest direction of the Fog Valley, the fleet captain of the East China Sea region, Xieji, rushed to this place. According to the guidance of the reconnaissance team, he also found a place where the Source Elves appeared. The Source Elves are the companions of the Source of the Gods. Whether for the purpose of competing for the Source of the Gods or simply collecting Source Elves, you can participate in the search for the Source Elves. Xieji was very lucky. He actually found more than a dozen moon-white Source Elves on a dead old tree. The huge tree was tens of meters high. Because it was infected by the poisonous miasma, it had turned into a strange dark brown. Those cheerful elves jumped between the tree holes, unaware of the impending danger. They sang and danced like a group of children who knew nothing. It was just like when humans were first born. Xieji did not dare to delay at all, as delay would lead to changes. He immediately took out the sealing jar and prepared to collect all the Source Elves. But just as he approached the dead tree, he heard a melodious shakuhachi sound. Xieji's pupils shrank suddenly. There are people around here. In a short moment, he understood everything. Someone was using the Source Elves as bait, waiting for others. The person takes the bait and then hunts. In the duel between high-level aliens, victory or defeat can often be decided in a moment. The party that takes the initiative will gain an incomparable advantage. Originally, Xieji would not make such a low-level mistake with his vigilance. However, the importance of the Source Spirit made him anxious, which led to a crack in his psychological vigilance. This provided the opponent with an opportunity to take advantage of. Xieji was about to retreat immediately, but it was too late. When he stepped into this area, a woman dressed in a Great Witch costume had already begun to play melodiously with a shakuhachi in her hand. The deep voice seemed to come from the deep sea, with a hint of hoarseness in the elegance, but also a dizzying, bewitching effect. The world in front of Xieji began to distort like Van Gogh's Starry Night. His body was also twisting, and his legs unconsciously came to the top of his body. Although he didn't move at all, he felt like he was hanging upside down in the air. Illusion! Xieji understood this immediately, but the nausea-like feeling of seasickness in his mind could not be erased. The witch did not show up, and the sound of the shakuhachi became more and more melodious. A song, Fog Siqi, created an illusion that Xieji could not get rid of. Among all abilities, spiritual aliens are one of the rarest. Whether it is a weak body or an illusion attack that makes people hard to defend against, they are particularly representative. Once shrouded in an illusion, no matter how powerful an alien is, it is difficult to quickly get rid of the control of the illusion. Chapter 990 Harmony of All Things. Xieji's face gradually twisted, and his face turned red, as if something was stuck in his neck. Xieji's hands tightly grasped his throat. I can't breathe. Perhaps he himself did not even realize that it was his own hands that were suffocating him. Crack. A crisp sound came from his throat, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, and then he collapsed weakly. Not long after, Tsukuyomi slowly walked out from behind the dead tree. She was wearing a red and white shrine maiden's costume with golden decorations around it, and a golden crown on her head, looking extremely sacred. Seeing that Xieji was dead, she raised a cold smile at the corner of her mouth and slowly walked towards Xieji. But when she came to Xieji, the corpse on the ground suddenly began to collapse at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a pile of mud in an instant. Wow! The ground behind Tsukuyomi broke apart directly, and along with the dirt and rocks, Xieji's figure pounced on Tsukuyomi. He held a three-edged military dagger in his right hand and stabbed it at the back of Tsukuyomi's head. If the heart is pierced, the person will not die immediately, and there is a risk of counterattack before death. But if the brain is destroyed, it will die instantly. The three-edged military dagger came to the back of Tsukuyomi's head in an instant, and when it was about to pierce, a magical wave suddenly appeared in the air. Then the three-edged military dagger was suddenly blocked by something, and a clang sound was made, as if it collided with something hard. Xieji's pupils shrank slightly, and he retreated dozens of steps without hesitation. He held the three-edged military dagger in his right hand, took out a black pistol with his left hand, and looked at the woman in front of him with a serious expression. Facing Xieji's counterattack, Tsukuyomi had no expression on his face, but a hint of curiosity flashed in the depths of his eyes. She slowly turned around and looked at Xieji. Behind her, a phantom as tall as 2 feet gradually became solid. It was a warrior from the Warring States period wearing black and red armor. The huge and exaggerated plate armor made his already huge body look even more oppressive. His face could not be seen clearly because he was covered with a ghost mask. He held a vermilion samurai sword in his left hand and a jet-black samurai sword in his right hand. The two swords crossed in front of Tsukuyomi, protecting her tightly in his arms. This is Tsukuyomi's ability, Demon God Suntory. The spirit behind. Xieji had already obtained information about the other party through the command center. Because of this kind of shrine maiden's dress and iconic and distinctive abilities, the other party's identity could be recognized at once. Neon has 2 major organizations, Izumo in Kanto and Pelican in Kansai, and the alien army of the Izumo organization is called God Pillar. Xieji stared at Tsukuyomi and said word by word, "You are the leader of the God Pillar, Tsukuyomi, right?" Every nerve of Xieji was tense. Because according to the intelligence from the command center, Tsukuyomi's ability index is 9,500 points, and Xieji's ability index is 9,400 points. Although the gap seems small, the opponent is definitely likely to kill him. Therefore, he must be extremely careful to deal with the opponent in front of him. Tsukuyomi did not rush to attack him, but asked, "I am curious, how did you avoid my illusion?" Xieji sneered, "Come and try it yourself, won't you know?" Xieji, the captain of the East China Sea Fleet, has the ability code, Harmony of All Things. In the entire East China Sea region, he is the standard for evaluating combat power. It is not because of the strength, but because of the ability of Harmony of All Things, which allows him to adapt to any environment. In short, he can adjust his ability attributes according to the changes in the surrounding environment to alleviate his weaknesses. So when facing Tsukuyomi's illusion, he can make his mental power stronger to offset the influence of the illusion. Xieji stared at Tsukuyomi, and his mind had already begun to think about how to fight. From the moment they landed on the island, they had already had the awareness of death in their hearts. Because once they met the aliens of the hostile forces, it would be a fight to the death. No one would miss this opportunity to eliminate the living forces of the hostile forces to the maximum extent. Xieji's eyes saw the shakuhachi in her hand and the kishin coterie beside her. A psychic ability user or a special ability user. I have a way to resist her illusion attack, but after the fight just now, the ghost behind her is obviously a close combat type. Then, is long range her weakness? Thinking of this, Xieji pulled the trigger without hesitation at Tsukuyomi. One after another, the origins were ejected at Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi had a calm face, holding the shakuhachi in her right hand, and her wide robe did not move at all. There was no wind, but it was abnormally fluttering, as if hiding something strange. All of this fell into Xieji's eyes. Facing the Xieji's shooting, Guishan Zidu's eyes suddenly burst into a dazzling red light. From his mouth came out a blue mist, which seemed to come from the netherworld's low roar. Then the ghost cut in his left hand, and the god cut in his right hand quickly slashed out in front of him. A black and a red supernatural slash flew forward in a cross shape, just blocking the path of Xieji's shooting. All the bullets were bounced away and did not get within 3 meters of Tsukumi. After slashing the bullets, Guishan Zika's attack did not stop. His eyes exuded a bewitching red light, staring at Xieji, and then crossed his 2 swords. The next moment, Xieji's eyes saw his afterimage passing through the air. Guishan Zika's speed was so fast that dozens of images were left in Xieji's pupils. He rushed straight to Xieji, and the huge double sword slashed down fiercely. Harmony of all things. Xieji's eyes were cold, and he instantly activated his own energy. This time he increased the strength of his own body. Facing Guishan Zika's terrifying slash, he held the military bayonet to block it above his head.
Ping!
The 2 swords crossed and chopped down, and the bayonet made of adamantium made a piercing sound that made people's eardrums hurt. The powerful shock waves spread from under their feet and instantly caused the poisonous miasma of thousands of meters around to surge and roll back. The ground under their feet was broken badly. Xieji's legs were deeply inserted into the ground, but he did not move at all. Only the ground under his feet did not break or dent. He could use the power of the earth to fight back. And the lower half of the body of the demon god, Zidori, was just a phantom, and only the upper half existed, just floating in the air like that, and began to fight fiercely with Xieji. Xieji's eyes were fixed on Zidori, and at the same time, he was looking at Tsukuyumi in the distance. If I can get past this demon god and attack her body. Chapter 991. Ghost Sun Take. As Xieji thought of this, his body sank into the ground in the next moment. Guishan Zichu's long sword missed. A moment later, a human figure suddenly appeared on the ground in front of Tsukuyumi. The ability of harmony of all things is to be able to blend into any surrounding environment and gain corresponding abilities. Earth Escape is one of the abilities. Xieji came in front of Tsukuyumi and stabbed her dark pupils with the bayonet in his hand. However, Guishan Zichu, who was still dozens of meters away, disappeared in an instant and reappeared behind Tsukuyumi. Clang! Giki accurately blocked the bayonet, and Shinchi slashed at Xieji's neck. Xieji had to retreat while resisting Guishan's attack to relieve his powerful force. Every time Guishan slashed, the terrifying power made his arms numb. Obviously, a head-on fight is not the right answer. But it can move to Tsukuyumi's side in an instant, so the surprise attack seems useless. But if it is this kind of spirit behind you, then its range must be limited. Xieji thought of this and used the Earth Escape ability to sneak underground again. Tsukuyumi looked at the scene in front of her and had some understanding of Xieji's ability. She stretched out her right hand towards Guishan Zidu. Catch this rat out. Guishan Zidu was surrounded by black and red supernatural powers, and he whimpered softly, like an evil ghost from the underworld. Then he raised his sword with his backhand, and the 2 huge samurai swords suddenly pierced the ground. Thunderboom! The powerful supernatural power directly broke the ground under his feet, and even the hard frozen soil layer was broken into dust like tofu. In the rubble, Xieji's figure could no longer hide. He turned around without hesitation and fled to the depths of the poisonous miasma. Catch up with him. Tsukuyumi looked at the place where Xieji escaped with his cold eyes and gave his own orders. Guishan Ziku returned to Tsukuyumi, carried her on his shoulders, and then swung his double swords and rushed towards the poisonous miasma. Guishan was so fast that he caught up with Xieji in the poisonous miasma in less than 5 seconds. The huge double swords chopped left and right, and the red and black supernatural powers turned into substantial sword lights, constantly attacking Xieji. Harmony of all things. In an instant, Xieji completed its transformation. His eyes flashed with a dark light. This time, The three-edged military dagger in his hand accurately blocked Guaishen's attack. Compared with the first time, he dealt with it more calmly. The ability to reconcile all things like a chameleon can allow him to adapt to the environment better. Even adapt to the opponent's ability. The longer he fights with his opponent, the more he will adapt to the opponent's fighting style, and then his body will spontaneously evolve. Now, he has quickly adapted to Guaishen Zika's violent fighting style. And then, it's time to perform. Double swords against three-edged military daggers and pistols. This was a battle so fast that it was hard to catch with the naked eye. A demon sword and a god's sword slashed down at Xieji frantically. The earth wailed, and the ground beneath his feet broke. Xieji responded with a three-edged military dagger. Although there was a gap in strength, he was constantly retreating, but he was not embarrassed but responded calmly. In addition, in the gaps between defenses, he could also use the origin bullet to attack the demon god and find his weaknesses. As long as it is a thing transformed by superpowers, it will definitely be affected by the origin bullet. The degree of influence depends on the strength of the superpowers. Hualala. Soon Xieji emptied a magazine, and the black eggshell fell to the ground. The next moment, the ground under his feet was shattered by the demon god's sword. The two fought all the way, and the surrounding city buildings were affected by the residual power and collapsed one after another. However, Xieji was not in a hurry at all, and began to deliberately lead Tsukuyomi to the narrow alleys in the ruins of the city. Then he took advantage of the narrow terrain of the alley to move and counterattack. Tsukuyomi sat on the ghost's shoulder and looked at him coldly. Before breaking through the ghost, Xieji could not hurt her at all. Shwa. Shwa. Two blazing blades crossed and slashed at her. Xieji dodged narrowly by turning sideways and ran into the alley next to her. A cross-shaped hole was directly opened in a building next to her, which was transparent from front to back. The ghost chased after him and turned into the alley. But at the moment he appeared at the entrance of the alley, two silver grenades suddenly appeared under his feet. In an instant, dazzling white light enveloped everything around him. Xieji clung to the wall with one hand, hanging in the air and looking at the scene in front of him. Origin grenade. I wonder how much threat it can cause to you in such a narrow terrain? At this moment, the familiar voice of the shakuhachi rang in his ears again. Xieji frowned. Another illusion? But I'm really sorry this ability is useless to me. In the smoke of the explosion, Guaishen Ziku walked out safely. But this time, Xieji always felt that something was different. The thick black air on the huge ghost god was lingering like wolf smoke. A more terrifying, more evil, and darker feeling appeared. After playing a song of shakuhachi, Tsukuyomi said coldly to Xieji, "My ability is certainly useless to you, but it may be useful to others." Xieji frowned. He felt a dangerous aura enveloped him, and Tsukuyomi's words made him feel surprised and puzzled. If this illusion was not used on him, then who would it be used on? There were no comrades nearby. Suddenly, a strange idea emerged in his mind. Could it be that you want to block my signal transmission? At the command center, the new signal that was originally communicating with Xieji suddenly became disordered, and the picture became extremely blurry. Even the staff responsible for monitoring this side began to become dull-eyed. In the end, they actually stretched out their hands and strangled their necks tightly, trying to kill themselves. Seeing this, other people around hurried over to stop them. But after hearing the enchanting melody of the shakuhachi, one by one they also felt dizzy. A colonel in the crowd was quick-witted and directly cut off the signal transmission, preventing the sound from continuing to play. This allowed the staff to recover. Music illusion. He saw through the problem at a glance. It's just that his target of attack is not Xieji, but the staff here. Why did he do this? The signal was cut off, which made Li Tianyang and others a little dissatisfied. Now that it is the critical moment of the battle, how can they let down? What's the problem? Restore communication as soon as possible. Chapter 990, 2 Pirate Group. Xieji hung his body in the air, trying to find a way to break through Tsukuyomi's ghost and kill her body. But suddenly, he saw an extremely terrifying scene. The ghost, who was already murderous, became even bigger and more terrifying in the rolling fog. Thick black smoke rose into the sky, completely covering the ghost. Xieji's eyes slowly widened, and because of fear, his pupils shrank to the size of mung beans. In front of the ghost, Tsukuyomi's eyes also became dark, cold, and evil. No one can see it now. You can die. At the command center, the lost communication was restored after a few minutes. When they connected the video, they found that the scene in front of them had flipped 90 degrees. There are only two possibilities for this angle: either the equipment fell, or Xieji's people fell to the ground. Li Tianyang's heart tightened, and he quickly lay on the command platform and shouted loudly, "Xieji, Xieji, what's the situation now?" But he didn't get any response. Could it be that Captain Xieji was killed? A cold sweat ran down an officer's forehead. It took only a few minutes from the disappearance of their vision to the reconnection. They didn't know what happened in the middle. It's just that when the smart device in the combat uniform falls off and people can't be contacted, there is a high probability that something extremely bad has happened. Li Tianyang gritted his teeth. His face was extremely gloomy. "Xieji, Xieji, answer me." There was finally a response in the camera. A pair of feet stepping on clogs appeared in front of the camera. It was a pair of very petite feet, wrapped in white cotton socks, and the red skirt on the calf could be seen. It seemed that the voice in the communication equipment was heard, and one foot slowly lifted up and stepped on the camera. On the side of the combat command center, what was seen was a small foot in white cotton socks stepping on their faces. Kacha. The lens cracked. It was a military device strong enough, but the kick pushed the device into the mud, and they completely lost their vision. "That's Tsukuyomi's foot," an officer murmured, his voice a little bitter, and he swallowed his saliva involuntarily. Everyone looked at Li Tianyang. The battle situation was self-evident. Xieji was in danger at this time. Li Tianyang punched the command platform angrily. Impossible. With Xieji's ability, even if he can't beat his opponent, he can't be killed so quickly. Tsukuyomi's ability can never do that. Xieji, who has the ability of harmony of all things, has a first-class ability to save his life. Even if he encounters an opponent stronger than him, he can quickly target the opponent's ability and optimize his own ability. Everyone knows that in the duel between aliens, the restraint relationship between ability attributes is particularly important. So Xieji can't beat others, and it's still easy to escape. Unless he encounters someone who has robbed too much of his strength. He was killed before he could even use his abilities. But is Neon's Tsukuyomi really that powerful? Li Tianyang's eyes were full of resentment. Neon does not allow such a powerful existence. She must have used something we don't know yet. At this time, Situ Xian said leisurely, Neon's people are the most insidious and cunning. They have been adhering to the principle of overcoming the superiors with the inferiors since ancient times, and they are always thinking about dominating. I'm afraid these guys won't reveal their true strength so easily. He said meaningfully, "Do you really understand the strength of these people?" This sentence reminded everyone in the East China Sea region. Since the end of the world, the opponent they care about most is the Columbia Navy. And countries such as Neon and Silla are not taken seriously by them at all. Because the strength of the East China Sea region is indeed strong, with a large number of weapons and equipment, excellent troops, and top aliens. Neon, a country whose military has been controlled for a century, does not really have a decent armed force. But it may not be that they don't have powerful aliens. Li Tianyang's face was terribly gloomy. When Lilong was killed, he was gloating and looked down on the Jiangnan region. But so soon, their captain was also killed. To be honest, life and death are common on the battlefield. But it would be a lie to say that he didn't feel sad when his captain, who had spent a lot of resources to train in his own region, died. After a long silence, Li Tianyang said, "Update the information about Tsukuyomi immediately and mark her ability index as unknown. Notify all the aliens on the island to pay attention to this guy." The death of Xieji sounded a wake-up call to everyone. Only on the battlefield can you see the true foundation of a person or a force. The existence that was praised to the sky before the war may not have much dominance on the battlefield. And some people who are hidden deep will also show their sharp claws and surprise everyone. For example, you do. You never know how strong the opponent you will face next is. Don't be blinded by appearances, and don't underestimate any opponent. When we are cautiously moving forward and trying to find the source of God, there is such a special team that also appears around the Fog Valley. The members of the Tianlong Pirates, who do not belong to any country and crisscross the Starry Sea, have also joined the fight for the source of God. Tianlong Wang was the first batch of people to get the information. It can even be said that he arrived at Qingdao earlier than other forces. It's just that the information he got at the beginning was obviously not as good as the major forces. It can only be judged that the source of God is located on Qingdao. Therefore, he organized his elites and boarded this island country. There is no shortage of excellent talents in the pirate group. After analyzing and exploring this strange poisonous miasma, they also came to the edge of the Fog Valley. The shrinking of the poison circle also increased the probability of encounters between the various teams. In order to obtain the source of God and restore the prestige of the Tianlong Pirates, the Dragon King brought all the capable aliens under his command. Among them were his deputy captain Bai Lian and the 4 surviving captains of the fleet. The Dragon King led them to the edge of the Mist Valley. This was a desolate wasteland, surrounded by trees that had died and frozen into ice sculptures, as well as large tracts of rubble. The tall body of the Dragon King stood at the front of the team. He looked at the denser poisonous miasma in front of him, and a hint of excitement appeared in his eyes. I seem to have sensed a powerful force there. Chapter 993 Hellsister. Hearing what the Dragon King said, the deputy captain Bai Lian immediately bowed and flattered. Congratulations, Lord Dragon King. As long as you get the source of God, you will definitely be promoted to the Ypsilon level. At that time, Huashu country and Colombia will have to be polite to you. From now on, my Tianlong pirates will be able to roam freely in the East China Sea. Several captains also flattered the Dragon King. At that time, those guys in the Jiangnan district will never be able to go to sea for the rest of their lives. Let them see whose territory the East China Sea is, and they have to hand over the murderer who killed Nero Te and others. The corners of the Dragon King's mouth showed a pleasant smile. It was impossible to ask the Jiangnan district to hand over Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishua. He didn't dare to be so arrogant. But at least after he was promoted to Ypsilon, Huashu country could no longer be like before, just sending a small fleet to scare him into hiding in the bunker and not dare to show his head. The source of God, I will get it. Tianlong Wang clenched his huge fist and said in a deep voice. When they began to move forward and prepare to enter the depths of the Fog Valley. In an area ahead, the poisonous miasma that was so thick that it appeared dark green began to surge strangely. After the Tianlong pirates entered an area ahead, suddenly, one after another dark green figures walked out from the depths of the thick poisonous miasma. They were all wearing green clothes that were almost black, and they were wearing gas masks on their heads, but their hands and feet were abnormally exposed outside, all of which were creepy black and purple, especially their nails, which were 3 or 4 centimeters long and all dark purple. They surrounded the members of the Tianlong pirates from the depths of the poisonous miasma like ghosts. Tianlong Wang and others were unaware at first, and when they realized that the poisonous miasma around them had unusual fluctuations, they had completely fallen into the encirclement of those weirdos. Stop. There is an ambush. Don't act rashly. Tianlong Wang raised his right hand to signal everyone to stop. All members immediately took a fighting stance, but those weirdos kept approaching them. When the pirates found them, they were already within 20 meters of them. The level of the poisonous miasma fluctuations could be vaguely seen with the naked eye. This made everyone startled. Being able to get so close to them without them noticing, the strength of the person must be extraordinary. Deputy Captain Bai Lian opened a gorgeous iron fan in his hand and vigilantly scanned the weirdos around him. They looked like zombies, without any sense of existence. But seeing them, for some reason, always evokes the deepest fear in people's hearts. Who are these guys? Among the major teams in this landing operation, few acted in large forces. Even for the alien teams, those below the deputy captain would almost become cannon fodder in the encounter. So much so that later, many captains would adopt the strategy of acting alone. Unless they have a deputy with special abilities, they would not even bring a deputy. But these weirdos, shadowy, actually numbered in the hundreds. Just as they were about to fight, the same voice came out from these hundreds of weirdos. The Tianlong pirates, the gang led by Li Fengxian. This is not a place you should approach. Leave quickly. Otherwise, you will be attacked by the Columbia Navy. Listen carefully for the last time. Leave here immediately. The voice came from all directions and echoed in everyone's ears. Tianlong Wang frowned. It's a member of the Hell Chain. Are there clones around? Then his real body must be not far away. Bai Lian looked at Tianlong Wang. Lord Dragon King, are we going to go to war with the Columbia Navy? Tianlong Wang's eyes became extremely gloomy. It took a lot of effort to find this place, and it's impossible for them to leave now. If he can't get the source of God and make his strength go further, then he will only become an eel in the East China Sea in the future. It's the kind of monster that hides in the depths of the sea and has no eyes. It's impossible to be a Tianlong who soars in the sky, swims in the sea, and is strong and reckless. But right now, if we go to war with the person in front of us, it will be the same as breaking off relations with the Columbia Navy. The result will still be death. I am afraid that I can't even leave Qingdao. The Dragon King thought about it and suddenly said loudly, I am Li Fengxian, the leader of the Dragon Pirates. I wonder which one of the Hell Chains is coming. We, the Dragon Pirates, have always had a friendly relationship with the Columbia Navy and have never offended them. We are also in line with you in the position of blockading Huashu country. So, we are not enemies. Deep in the poisonous miasma, there is a weirdo who is also wearing a dark green combat uniform and a gas mask. A member of the Hell Chain, codenamed Hell Horse, also known as her sister. The power index is 9,600 points. His ability index is lower than Vito Baldia. But in this foggy valley full of poisonous miasma, the effect that his ability can exert may be even better than Baldia. At this time, Hellsister is hiding in the depths of the poisonous miasma. This is a natural barrier for him. He calmly called General Horn at the command center to report the situation here. I encountered the enemy at the edge of the foggy valley. It was the group of pirates in the Southeast Sea. General Horn was also very surprised after hearing this. Pirates? All the officers in the command center felt extremely funny. This battle is a war between several major countries in the ocean area. Although the number of participants is not large, they represent the top combat power in their respective regions. What's more, behind each of them stands a force that the Tianlong pirates absolutely cannot afford to provoke. Are these pirates crazy? They dare to come here to make trouble at this time. Horn's eyes were full of murderous intent. Clutty asked from the side, should we go to war with them? But the Tianlong pirates do have a certain strength. And we are there, and there is only Hellsister. The Tianlong King Li Fengxian, the power index is 9,800 points. This information is not a secret. But General Horn had almost no hesitation, with his hands on the command platform, and said in a decisive tone, Hellsister, kill them. The battlefield is cruel, and any possible threats must be eliminated. As for whether Hellsister can get rid of the Tianlong pirates, the opponent's power index is 9,800 points, and there are more than a dozen elite pirates following him. And Hellsister's power index is only 9,600 points. Horn read the data provided by the intelligence department, but a cruel and confident smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. So, the advantage is mine. Chapter 990, Force Spreading Plague. After receiving Horn's order, Hellsister responded coldly. Received. At the same time, the weirdos who surrounded the Tianlong pirates all walked forward. Put down your weapons, hold your heads with both hands, and I can spare your lives. The weirdos in the poisonous miasma surrounded them like a wall. The Tianlong pirates had no idea of the other party's details at this time. If they took action, it would be equivalent to breaking up with the Columbia Navy. But it was obviously impossible not to take action and let them be bound. The Tianlong king quickly made a decision: kill. He roared, and his clothes were instantly burst open. The strong muscles swelled up, and then a layer of black iron-like luster emerged. Soon he turned into his own beast form, Vajra, armor dragon. If you want war, then I will give you war. The Tianlong king roared. The pirates around him also laughed, and all kinds of supernatural powers were displayed, fighting with those weird soldiers together. Hundreds of soldiers rushed over, and more than a dozen soldiers surrounded one person and started a fierce fight. These soldiers' fighting skills were very strong, and their attacks were extremely heavy. Especially when the limbs collided, it gave people a feeling of hitting cold steel. The Dragon King turned into a giant dragon hundreds of meters long and hovered in the air, looking around coldly. The fog was too thick, and he couldn't see where the operator of these weird soldiers was. Vajra body. The Dragon King's huge body circled around vigorously, and the huge force directly swept hundreds of soldiers away. Dragon flame. He opened his bloody mouth and spit out a surging black flame, as long as 100 meters, and began to burn towards the surrounding poisonous miasma. These poisonous miasma encountered the ultra-high temperature flame and were quickly burned clean. Seeing this scene, the members of the pirate group shouted excitedly, "Lord Dragon King is mighty! Lord Dragon King is mighty!" The Dragon King and Bai Lian did not feel a bit relieved. Because they are too familiar with the Columbia Navy, they are the real overlords of the ocean area. If they are not absolutely sure, they will not start a war easily. Even Huashu, which is competing with Columbia for hegemony, has to say, Columbia can be said to be bad, but Columbia cannot be said to be bad. They can't believe that they can hit each other so easily. Sure enough, when the aliens under his command were still cheering, suddenly, a pirate felt an itch in his arm. He raised his arm and took a look. What he saw scared him so much that his face turned pale instantly. The fake combat uniform on his arm had been corroded with 7 or 8 large holes at this time. The flesh and blood inside were turning pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then continued to turn dark green, and then quickly turn black. Soon, his flesh rotted, and the severe pain made him wail miserably. Ah! Tianlong Wang and Bailian looked at him, but soon, it was not just them who were wailing. Almost half of the team had the same symptoms. A lot of corrosion and ulceration appeared on their bodies, and soon they could see the bones, and the injuries continued to spread. It's poison. Bai Lian's forehead was covered with cold sweat. Everyone who just came into contact with those soldiers has been poisoned. Some pirates couldn't stand it anymore, so they pulled out their knives and cut off the flesh on their corroded arms, abdomens, and thighs. It was okay for those who acted early, but some people were too seriously injured to cut off all the flesh. Moreover, in this extremely cold environment full of poisonous miasma, not to mention cutting off hands and feet, exposing large areas of wounds is also a sure death. The worst thing is that the Tianlong pirates have no information about the secret enemy. But all their information has been transmitted to Hellsister's data system as soon as possible. In the poisonous miasma, Hellsister was as cold as a machine. He suddenly reached out and lifted the lower end of the gas mask, revealing his jaw. It was half a rotten and creepy face, with white teeth on his mouth, and even his lips were gone. But he opened his devil-like mouth and breathed in the dark green horror miasma. Hell Horse, Hellsister, the god of plague in Norse mythology. Hellsister is just as apt. His ability is poison, the most terrible poison. His ability is called Spreading Plague. He himself is a huge source of plague, and he can devour all the toxins in the world and use them for himself. So when he appeared on the battlefield of Fog Valley, his ability was also greatly enhanced. This is why General Horn was sure that he could wipe out the entire Tianlong pirates by himself. The supernatural power index is sometimes just a number. The poor pirates, in their eyes, are just a group of beggars on the sea. Without the most advanced. He didn't have enough weapons and equipment. nor a strong intelligence system. In such a duel with a huge gap in strength, he didn't know how Hellsister would lose. Hellsister absorbed the dense, poisonous miasma around him. Soon, the more pure poison, after being tempered, was excreted from his pores and discharged to the surroundings through the exhaust holes of his special combat uniform. After a while, his body was surrounded by this disgusting poison that could easily poison a whale. The poison quickly condensed and formed, and then turned into a humanoid figure exactly like him. Disaster Legion. As long as he is on this land, he can continuously obtain the purest toxins and then summon these disaster soldiers infinitely. They have strong combat power themselves. The most terrifying thing is that they carry deadly toxins all over their bodies. With the poor equipment of the Tianlong pirates, it can't stop its corrosion at all. It only takes one hit, and it is almost certain to die. On the Tianlong pirate side, they didn't even see the appearance of the enemy, and they had already suffered losses. Those who were poisoned endured the pain that penetrated their bones. Even though they knew they could not survive, they still had to cut off the corroded parts. But after cutting them off, they would die quickly. The Sky Dragon King was angry, and he let out an angry dragon roar. The black supernatural light shone around him. After a moment, another diamond-armored dragon that looked exactly like him appeared from the black light. The clone ability, Mirage Dragon. The two giant dragons stood back to back, their long bodies stretched forward, and then spewed out a thin black flame. The flame was nearly a kilometer long, and it instantly burned the poisonous miasma and the disaster soldiers in front of them into ashes. The two dragons rotated in a posture, and in less than 10 seconds, they cleared a blank area with a radius of a kilometer with them as the center of the circle. Chapter 995. Twin Dragons, Hell Horse. The Dragon King transformed into two dragons and burned the surrounding poisonous miasma and the poisonous disaster soldiers with super high-temperature dragon flames. This gave the pirates some breathing time. But not long after, the surrounding poisonous miasma surged again. This is the Fog Valley, the center of the poisonous miasma. Any gaps will be quickly filled. Unless he can clear all the poisonous miasma on the entire Star Island, he will not be able to resolve this crisis. Moreover, under the cover of the poisonous miasma, the second batch of disaster soldiers loomed and surrounded them like zombies. The Dragon King felt a little heavy in his heart. For him, escaping from here is not a problem at all. But once he left, these subordinates around him could not withstand the endless offensive of the other party. Deputy Captain Bai Lian saw the difficulties of the Dragon King, and he also knew that if he wanted to break the situation now, he had to find the aliens hiding in the dark. So he said to the Dragon King, "Lord Dragon King, go find the stranger in the dark. We will hold on here." The Dragon King looked at his deputy and knew in his heart that this was the most correct approach at the moment. At this moment, a large number of disaster soldiers approached numbly like a human wall. They issued a cold warning. "The dragon pirates, you have been surrounded. Give up resistance and surrender immediately. Otherwise we will kill you all. The members of the Hell Chain are all here. Don't make any unnecessary resistance." These words made the pirates feel even more desperate. Due to the absolute inequality in information, they have no idea who the enemy they are facing is. It is even more unclear how many enemies there are in the dark. If there are multiple members of the Hell Chain here, except for the Dragon King and the deputy leader Bai Lian, the others have no power to resist and can only wait to die. But the Dragon King is not so easy to be fooled. People who can become pirate kings are extraordinary in courage and intelligence except for a certain third-generation surnamed Liu. So when he heard Hellsister's warning, he sneered and said loudly, "If there were really so many members of the Hell Chain here, you wouldn't be so pretentious." After he said that, he looked up to the sky and let out a long roar, and a black beam of light shot straight into the sky. Not long after, with the black beam of light as the center, thick clouds began to condense. The clouds in the sky were grayish-white, and snow was falling. As the episode progressed, it soon turned into thick black clouds. Crackles. Huge hailstones fell from the clouds, covering a range of nearly 10 kilometers around. The huge dragon heads of the twin dragons incarnated by the Dragon King began to spray high-temperature flames around. The temperature in the surrounding area rose rapidly, and the hailstones began to melt before they landed, turning into rain. Voila! It started to rain in the bitter winter, which was also a magical sight. One of the Dragon King's abilities is to call for rain. Rain fell from the sky, like a bucket of water. The heavy poisonous miasma particles were wrapped in rain and were soon diluted. The vision around became clearer and clearer. Hiding in the depths of the poisonous miasma, Hellsister looked at the sky and muttered to himself, "I haven't seen rain for a long time." His figure was finally captured by the Dragon King. The Dragon King glared at the guy wearing a gas mask in the distance, and with a deafening dragon roar, the two dragons circled and flew high into the sky. Attract thunder and lightning. Thunder roared in the cumulonimbus clouds, and one after another huge ball of lightning seemed to be slow, but in fact it fell quickly towards Hellsister. But Hellsister was not in a hurry at this time. He opened his arms and enjoyed it, letting the rain mixed with a lot of poisonous miasma wash over his body. What a wonderful rain! His hands slowly drooped, and then a strong suction appeared in his arms. The dark green venom on the ground gurgled into his arms. He waved his right hand forward casually, and a dark green venom mixed with his smelly superpowers turned into a hemispherical barrier in front of him. Balls of lightning fell one by one, hitting the dark green barrier, and only the sound of crackling could be heard. The venom was constantly evaporated by the thunder, but Hellsister could also replenish it through the venom pool under his feet. Standing on this battlefield, he could exert his abilities to the best of his ability. The Dragon King watched from a distance, but did not dare to approach rashly. Because the opponent was full of poison, if he fought in close combat, it might bring a huge threat to himself. However, if he did not make a move, Hellsister would not give him time to breathe. He crossed his hands in front of him, and a large amount of venom began to bubble as if it was boiling. These bubbles quickly expanded and became more than 1 person tall. Then from these green bubbles, one after another, the disaster soldiers covered in mucus emerged. "Kill them." Hellsister gave the order coldly. A large number of disaster soldiers began to attack the pirates. And Hearst himself took out a long military thorn from his tactical backpack, which was glowing with a faint green light. Needless to say, it was stained with a deadly poison. I'm afraid that as long as it touches the skin, it will immediately cause ulcers. He stared at the Dragon King, with no extra emotions in his eyes. According to the Intelligence Department's information, the Dragon King's most powerful ability is close combat. Although Hearst is not sure to win the opponent in close combat. But he has a way to sprinkle venom on the Dragon King. No matter how strong the steel and iron bones are, they will wail and beg for mercy after being contaminated by the deadly poison. The Dragon King and Bai Lian below looked at each other. Bai Lian gave him a look and nodded silently. That means, just leave it to him here. The Dragon King no longer hesitated and rushed towards Hearst in an instant. The first to rush over was naturally his Mirage Dragon clone. He wanted to see how much damage this poisonous enemy in front of him could cause him. Disaster soldiers kept emerging from the venom and rushed towards the pirates on the ground. Bai Lian's eyes were cold, and he waved the iron fan in his hand vigorously. Dance, Frost White Lotus. The iron fan swept around gracefully, and the violent wind mixed with ice and snowstorms instantly centered on him and swept away the disaster soldiers attacking from all directions. Those bodies condensed by the venom were slowly frozen into ice sculptures before they got close. On the ground, it was like a huge white ice and snow lotus blooming. Hundreds of disaster soldiers were all sealed in it. On the main battlefield, the duel between Hellsister and the Dragon King was the core of the core. Facing the attack of the Mirage Dragon clone, Hellsister's gas mask suddenly cracked. His white teeth opened and spit out a stream of black mucus from his mouth. As soon as the mucus appeared, it attracted the surrounding venom like a whirlpool. After a short moment, it turned into an extremely ugly and ferocious hell horse with only 3 legs. Stay tuned for next episode to cross 1,000 mark.